you're going to succeed in the entrepreneur world, it's the toughest game in the world. It's the most fun game in the world, but it's the most challenging game in the world. There are some amazing peaks, but you spend a lot more times in the valleys. I actually just wrote a blog post about this. And so in order to power through those valleys, one of the things you have to be is in good shape physically and mentally, right? Because it'll just wear you down. And so that's a really important, at least for me, that I found is a really important piece of it is, being in having both those sides really in the best shape they can be so they can be the best that they can be.
Today, I'm joined by the best-selling author, Dave Lukas, who's co-owner and vice president of Grasp Technologies, an Inc. 5000 company that's enjoyed a yearly growth of 50+% over the last decade. Dave also hosts the weekly Misfit Entrepreneur Podcast, where he helps people and shares with people how to embrace their inner misfit. So Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Max. It's a pleasure to be on with you and everybody in the audience.
And I'm super excited to have you today. And I want to jump straight into being a misfit entrepreneur. So for our audience, I've probably never heard of that term. Can you define for us the misfit entrepreneur?
It's probably easiest to talk about how it came about, and that'll kind of help with the definition. So almost 7 years ago, my wife and I adopted our daughter from China. And in my younger days, I had had a lot of experience and got to study directly with some of the greats, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, even Tony Robbins and his group and stuff. Learned a tremendous amount, and that's how I became a best-selling author. I wrote a book about what I learned and how other people could take it and put it to use. And one of the things that I learned early on in my years was the fact that we are conditioned to be who we are, right? And that's every baby comes out of the womb with a clean slate, right? It's not like you're born and they're like, "Yeah, beautiful baby. Too bad it'll never make more than 35,000." It doesn't work like that, The truth is we're conditioned to be who we are. And so all the influences in our lives, a lot of that stuff's really good, right? Parents, friends, media, culture, religion, all these things, school, help to shape us and who we are. And a lot of people just go through life kind of being run by that conditioning, when the real epiphany is that you have the ability to choose which of that you keep and how to change the things that you don't want to keep in your mind so that you can grow yourself and grow your success and everything else. We can talk about that more as we go on. So being very in tune with that, one of the things that, for me and with this little one is I'm conditioning her from day one, right? And so all these teachable moments are coming up even early on. We got her about 18 months old. And I'm going to myself, geez, all these things are coming up and I'd seemingly forgotten all this stuff. I mean, even things that were in my book and stuff, I'm like, holy crap, that's something that I just totally forgotten. It's something I can teach her, right? And I said, there's got to be a way to immortalize all this amazing information that I have learned from those in the past, that I will learn, and from those that I get to meet and spend time with in the future, so that Hannah, my daughter, can learn from her daddy and his misfit friends long after I'm dead and gone. And as I thought about it more and more, every entrepreneur is a misfit. Actually, every one of us is a misfit. In fact, every one of us is an entrepreneur. I think it's one of the most innate human capabilities that we have. We all have an entrepreneur side to us, whether we use it or not, or put it to use in the traditional way in a business and that sort of thing is irrelevant. We all have that side to us. And as I really thought about it, it's the uniqueness of us as entrepreneurs, those unique things that we do, especially the highest performing entrepreneurs that consistently high perform. There's a uniqueness that they have that sets them apart. What is that? That's what I call their misfit side. So, misfit entrepreneur is really every one of us entrepreneurs, but what really separates the greats is how in tune they are with that misfit side and how they use it to really gain an advantage.
There's so much really cool stuff there. First of all, I love this idea of creating this legacy for your daughter, Hannah, right? Of really developing something for her and then now sharing it with the broader world that really is going to allow her to live a great life further down the line, even when you're gone, like you say. So I absolutely love that.
It's really taken on a new meaning, now that I started as a side project. I never expected it to be a huge thing. And, nowadays we're listened to like in 150 countries or something like that. And we've grown it into its own large business at this point. But I never expected that. It's something that has come about as the show has grown, and more and more listeners have reached out. I truly believe at this point in time that one great episode can change someone's life. And I say that because I've seen it. I've had people reach out to me, and that episode that you shared with so-and-so talking about overcoming this or doing that was exactly what I was looking for. I was ready to give up, or whatever. And so I truly believe that. And I approach every episode that way now. So it's got almost a dual meaning to it for me now, which makes it even more fun.
Yeah, for sure. I was listening to the episode where you talked about, getting Hannah from China, right? And it just shows the love that you experience for this girl, right? That you feel deep down inside. And I feel like that's what you put into the show with, everything that you create. Like it almost seems like you're talking to her with everything you do. So
yeah, in some episodes I do. I talk directly to her. So actually those are some of the most popular ones, right? So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I absolutely love that. And so you mentioned before, like we're all born as these blank slates, right? Like we're born a certain way, and then you would develop ourselves, and then culture oftentimes comes, whether it's in the form of parents or friends or teachers, and they say, no, like you shouldn't like stand out, right? Like take that inner misfit and shove it back like somewhere deep down in here, right? And I think that is one of the biggest struggles that people face, is like they have this authentic self, but they're not willing or able to actually unleash that.
Well, the term misfit, I think, has a negative connotation, right? Just, in a lot of societies and stuff, the misfits or whatever are the outcasts and stuff like that. And and even at one point, I think I kind of thought of it that way. But, as I have grown in business and done the things, head of a software technology company, and I went to school for finance and I've never coded a thing in my life. Right. Wow. So it's amazing how things weave their way and how things happen and stuff. And it's this, it is that kind of misfit side of us of looking at things differently and doing things differently and figuring out how to accomplish things where people haven't been able to before. That really moves the bar, sets us apart, helps us grow, helps us find new things about ourselves, help us realize new potential for ourselves and all that. So I really think that, the exploration of your misfit side is one of the greatest things that you can do to really grow yourself and reach new heights as a individual.
Yeah, for sure. And so to me, what it really sounds like is the traits that make you different, right? That make you maybe even a little bit weird, those weird quirks and eccentricities that you have, are also the very things that make you special, that make you valuable, that make you someone that actually stands out and therefore is able to deliver different kind of value to the world. And so I love what you're saying here about, being willing to show that. And in fact, I heard you talk before about, your whole company basically being a bunch of misfits sort of working together, right? Yeah. Colors that never went to school. And
yeah, it's funny. I mean, awareness is the catalyst to change or realization for things, right? So, I started when I started really kind of explore this idea of what that is, I started to look at like our company, how have we done what we've done, and who are people, where have they come from? Almost everybody, the majority of people in Grass Technologies are musicians. So we could have multiple bands. Most of our coders are self-taught. Most people, have come from totally different backgrounds and, been kind of molded into what we do. And we're in a really niche space in the travel industry for, our software and what we do. So it's kind of a really unique skill set that unless you fell into that somehow, you're not going to have, And so it's just really been interesting to kind of look at it. It is like this roving band of misfits that just got together and created this, amazing organization. And they've done, the team's just amazing, right? What they do and how they come up with what they come up with and the new solutions we provide and how we solve these great challenges for some of the largest companies in the world. It's really fun to watch, right? And it's really fun to watch the misfit side come out. So yeah, I think if you look at your life, you look across the, even a company, if you're an entrepreneur or just in the business that you're in, you're going to start to notice those things about people where, nothing in their background, makes any sense for where they are, and that kind of makes it fun, right?
Yeah, for sure. So is this misfit side something that you actively or deliberately look for when you're hiring new people to come on board, or did it sort of naturally develop and then you realized, wow, there's a bunch of misfits around here?
Well, I think, initially with our kind of our core group that we've had together for, over a decade plus, I don't think we interviewed for it. We were always, the way we built the company, the way we built Grasp was really always kind of different. We didn't follow, like, we're guerrilla marketers. We did, we did the exact opposite of what everybody thought we would do. Our business model is totally different than what the rest of the industry does. So we've always kind of done that because we've always wanted to, really find new ways of challenging how business is done and how to do things and really make a difference with how we do that, and show it to the market. So I'll give you like a good example. We've got a payment solution that we have in the marketplace, right? And it's a virtual payment solution. So I'm not going to bore you guys with all the stuff of what that is, but essentially it's a way to pay for like your hotel or your airline ticket or whatever, right? It's a type of payment. Instead of credit card, you use a virtual payment, right? And one of the biggest challenges in the space was there was no bridge between the point of sale systems, basically where you do the transaction, where you book things, right, for travel, and the banks that have these, these payments in them, right? And so there was a company that came along that, kind of opened the market and was the dominant player in the market. And they were doing some things that were, really challenging for clients, right? Really challenging them they literally have to readapt their whole business to it. So, we came along after, clients kind of prodded us for a while, and we looked at it and we basically said, well, why do you need all this extra stuff where, currently the way that processes are working, the way that people are doing things is they've got it down now and paying with a credit card, right? Or paying with the form of payment that the client needs. Why is it got to be such a big difference? Why can't we just replace the form of payment with, this other form of payment essentially? Right? Nobody had done that, amazingly, right?
Wow.
And so we figured out just an easy way to do that, so nobody had to change their business or anything around it. And then we had this crazy idea of like, well, at this point in time, these type of solutions were kind of new or in fledgling, right? So adoption was a challenge. We said, let's find a way to give it to clients for free.
Wow.
So that we can grow the adoption of it. Right. And we figured out how to do that and make money at the same time and all that stuff with the partners that we worked with and everything else. And, it's totally changed the paradigm of what is thought of for the capability with these solutions and everything now. And, at this point we're, on growth rate on pace to maybe be the largest player in the market in the next few years. Right. So, it's just an example, of how we could do that. And we really didn't, we didn't have to really spend any money to do it or anything like that. We just looked at doing a business model differently and asking questions, asking how. And that always activates the mind, right? Asking how instead of saying that can't be done or no, it stops your mind from thinking. Once you start asking how can we do this? How could we change the whole paradigm of things? Then it gets to be a lot of fun. That's when that misfit side comes out.
I absolutely love this really counterintuitive way of taking a problem and really simplifying it. That's what it sounds like to me. You really look at the most basic way to do it, the simplest way to do it so that everybody's happy, right? So I absolutely love that. Now, how should people balance, the misfit side and this sort of fitting into culture, right? Because I think there is certain value to fitting in sometimes in terms of cultural groups. So do you think that people should strike a balance or should sort of just put out their misfit side and take it or leave it kind of thing?
Well, it depends on what your misfit side is. If you're, if you're in a very executive level type business where everybody wears a suit and tie every day, and you wear your bathing suit, that's probably not going to go over so well, right? So, I think there's respect and there's tactfulness in how you look at how you do these things, but I don't think you should ever hold back that side of you, especially when it's working towards a common good or making a difference for people. I think you're doing them and yourself an injustice by doing that. So I don't know if there's a real balance. I think there's a time, like anything, for it to really come out and really to push for it and everything else. And there's a time to kind of collaborate and let others have their misfit side come out too, And so my best advice on how you do that is every situation is going to be different. Every personality is going to be different. One of the best ways that you can really understand when best and how to use your misfit side is to understand personality types. So if anybody listening has never learned the different types of personalities, my favorite model for that is the DISC model, D-I-S-C. It's been around since, gosh, the 1920s and 30s. So it's got the most history and science and everything behind it. But it's 4 different personality types, right? And based on each personality type, you have to know which part of you and your personality type and your misfit side to use. So we could talk about those personality types. I have a unique way of looking at them, as it's really important that you understand, the different types of people that you're working with and what makes sense to get the most done with them and achieve the best results.
For sure. So is that something that you actively use in your business, that you have people sort of fill out and then share with everybody so everyone sort of understands?
Yeah, we train our staff on it to understand everything, because we're, Grass Technologies, we're a virtual company. We do business in, 50 plus countries around the world, and we do it mostly virtually, like you and I are on a Zoom right now, right? So, that's something that we have to be able to do really well, is be able to understand who's on the other side. Many times we don't even have video, right? So we have to use voice inflection and everything else to really understand what type of personality that we're using, right? So for me, the personalities, there's 4 different types, and there's the DISC model, D-I-S-C. There's a bunch of different ones out there, but I've always found it easy to relate it to animals.
Okay? To animals.
So for me, like you have the D, right? D is the dominant. That's the dominant, right? For me, that's the lion, right? King of the pride, right? Lions are short on details. They just want to get to the result, get things done. So when you're dealing with a lion, you don't want to blabber on about a bunch of stuff. You want to be, to the point. How do you get to the result? How are you going to make a difference? And let's move. That's what lions like, right? So, you can use your misfit side with that. But you need to understand that a lion's not going to want to talk about your family for hours on end, as much as you may want to, right? That doesn't mean they don't care, but they're very goal driven. They're very deadline driven. So they're very much going to want to be moving towards that. And if you hold them up, that frustrates them, right? So, that's the lion. The next is the I. Okay. That's the influencive style, right? So I always liken the I to like the otter, swimming around, having all the fun, and stuff, with its friends and just life of the party and all that stuff. These are people that are they are the life of the party. They're larger than life in their personality. They also are the ones that when you unfriend them on Facebook get hurt about it, and dwell on it because they want everybody to like them and everything, right? So, they're make great salespeople. They're very outgoing. They can talk to anybody. They can, light up a room, that sort of thing. But they're going to be a lot more on the fun side of things, and they're not going to go straight to the point. They're not going to go straight to, the deadline like a lion would and stuff, right? So you're going to have more fun, banter, interaction with somebody like that, and you have to be ready for that and be able to accommodate that with them in that style, because they're going to want to do that, right? And they're going to want to be liked, right? And so that's somebody like you're on the other side of the phone with that. You need to really recognize that, because if you don't give them their time to, kind of shine, if you will, that's going to hurt them. They're going to, have an issue, so that's the next one. The S is for steadiness. Okay. So S is, steadiness. I think of the golden retriever, right? Yeah. Always there by your side, steady every single day. So, these are those people that are very loyal. They're very consistent. They're always there. They're not going to necessarily break out and have a huge high on life personality like an otter, or take charge like a lion and that sort of thing. They're going to be there. They're going to be consistent for you, and they're always going to be by your side. Right. And so with them, you're not going to want to push them too hard. You're not going to want to, come down on them or force them into things that really break them out of their comfort zone, because they just have a really hard time doing that, right? So, that's the golden retriever. And then the last one, there's a few different names for it. I call it the complacent, amiable style. It's just the C is the owl. Think your accountant. Think the person who's very, like, everything is meticulous on their desk. Everything is laid out a specific way. They have to do things a certain way. They have to know every detail. They actually share a lot in common with the dominant and the lion. They're just a lot more detail oriented. And so they can get frustrated when the details aren't given to them, right, in the way that they want it and stuff. So you have to be very careful when you're dealing with somebody like that, because they're going to be more reserved, they're going to be more quieter, but you better have your details. You better make sure that you've got everything to back up what you're saying, that you know exactly how you're going to proceed, you know, all that stuff, or they're going to get frustrated or they're going to have an issue, right? So you look at that in any business, and it really helps you to, number one, fulfill roles in your business. Like we'll do this inside Grass. Like, what do we need here? Do we need a golden retriever? What do we need? We need an otter. What do we need here? Right? What are we hiring for? Right? And we'll use that as part of our basis. But it's also very helpful when you're interacting with others. You know, what type of personality am I interacting with? What type of personality am I? How do I need to make sure, like I'm, you know, if you can't tell, I'm a lion first and then otter second. That's my personality type, right? So I can steamroll like a golden retriever and stuff like that if I'm not careful. And so I have to sometimes pare back, be a little bit more reserved, talk a little quieter, you know, move a little bit slower, that sort of thing, right? So you really have to understand yourself just as much in dealing with these, but it can make a world of difference in how you run your business, how you interact with your clients, how you sell, all that stuff. It can make a huge difference. Just 4 little things.
Wow, Dave, honestly, thanks for sharing. You know, I've known the disc model for probably 6-7 years now, but this is literally the best way anyone's ever broken it down. Because I think, especially with the animals in there, right? It just makes so much sense. Like,
it makes it more fun.
Yeah, it makes it more fun and more
relatable,
right? And like, so people can actually remember, oh, that's an otter, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so everybody's going to get off this, like, going to go to an event tonight, and I'm like, that's an otter, that's a lion. You know, so.
But it's fun, right? Because in that way, it's so much easier to really. And of course, I always feel like it's not like 100%, right? So like people aren't just completely 100% influencer, 100%, you know, lying. But I think
all of us are all of them.
Yeah.
But there are, if you take a disc test, there's a billion of them online. You can go take a free disc online. You're going to have 2 styles that are more your more dominant styles over the others that you're consistently more of. And those are your kind of they call them adaptive and natural styles, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so it's important, right, to understand sort of yourself, right? Understand who am I, how am I showing up? And then if someone's different than me, and this is something that I often struggle with, right? Because I tend to be this loud guy. I tend to be more on the otter side, right? When I'm like screaming through the whole room, like, hey, what's up, right? And I find that people, especially when they're, you know, on the steadiness side, especially when they're the owl maybe, and they're, you know, they're trying to really focus on their work, right? They tend to get a little bit annoyed, right? Because I'm just too much for them. So understanding that myself has been really helpful, and just sometimes toning it down a little bit.
Yep.
So absolutely love that. Now I want to get back a little bit to your entrepreneurial journey, because you have this great story. You know, you're 5 years old and you started out your sales career in Canada. So can you share that story with us?
Well, yeah, it wasn't in Canada, it's in the United States, but it has that slant to it. So yeah, when I was 5 years old, I wanted to make some money. So I went to my mom and said, I want to make some money. And she's like, okay, well, figure out a way to make some money. So I got this idea to make American flags and go sell them to the neighbors. So I got my construction paper out and we made the American flags, made a bunch of them, and got my little red wagon out and started going up and down the street to all the neighbors selling American flags. And it's like clockwork, you know, I mean, it's this little 5-year-old kid comes to the door. I'm selling American flags, you know, 5 cents or 10 cents a pop. And, you know, everybody's like, yeah, it's like 100% close rate, right? So,
oh yeah, for sure.
Super easy sale. So I get to the last house on the block, and it's kind of that house that the shutters are usually closed. You don't see the people a lot, that sort of thing. And I hit the doorbell, and it seems like an eternity. It was probably like 5 seconds, but it just seems like an eternity goes by, right? And you know, this little old lady answers the door, very pleasant little old lady, and I do my whole pitch and everything. And then after I do my pitch, you know, would you like to buy one? It seems like another eternity goes by, like before I get the answer. And the lady just very nicely says, "No, thank you, honey, we're Canadian," and shuts the door. And so that was my first rejection, you know, not to be lost though. We went back and we, you know, created a Canadian flag, looked that up, figured out how to do that, went back and, you know, sold it.
So that's her.
Yeah. So we were able to keep that close rate, but no, but that was like my first stab at just, you know, trying to do something in business, and trying to figure out how to get people to buy something that I made. Right. So that's how I started.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting because to me, I always love these stories because I used to be the total opposite. Like until about 20 or so, I didn't care about entrepreneurship whatsoever.
Mhm.
So what was that driver? And I know you started many companies at such a young age already, really started getting into this game. So what in the
Yeah.
beginning, was it just sort of the fun of like, can I sell this to someone? Can I make some profit? Can I get some candy or
Yeah, I
what
mean,
was it?
I think I've always been someone that's not very idle. So, some would say I'm probably ADD in some ways, right? Which I embrace wholeheartedly as part of my misfit side, if you
Yeah.
will. But I've always kind of been someone who just has to be moving and doing something and stuff. I can't. I've gotten better at relaxing over the years. I wouldn't say I'm as great at it as I
Yeah.
should be, but I'm just something that's always kind of been like that. So, when I'm, a kid just looking for things to do, 5 years old, it's summertime and just, you can only play outside and do so much. You're looking for other things to do. You want to make some money. I think I wanted to buy something or something like that.
Oh,
Really,
sure. Yeah.
there's necessity's the mother of invention, right? So I think there was something I wanted to get. And, I think my parents were always good about, if you want something great, you can go get it, but you're going to have to work for it. Right. And so you have to find a way, make a way. So I said, well, how can I make money? And there was only so many ways a 5-year-old can make money. Right.
Sure.
So that was
Yeah.
the one I chose. And that's kind of how that came together.
Yeah, absolutely love that really enthusiasm at such a young age to just go and
Yep.
do stuff and move towards something, right? Rather than just sitting and wasting time.
Well, and again, that's kind of a natural thing for human beings, though. I think Aristotle said, man's a goal-seeking animal. His life only has meaning if he's reaching out and searching or seeking out his goals, or is something to that nature. And I think that's that's in stuff like that's in the Bible too. I mean, it really goes back to human nature of who we are, right? I mean, there's just things that innately are who we are, and we need something to be striving for. If not, you find, and you'll see this with people, people that feel they don't have a purpose, they don't have meaning. It's because there's nothing that they have or that they feel they have to work for. And it's a real challenge, right? It's like, what you have so much good in your life. You have so many amazing things. You're so fortunate. You're so lucky. But, a lot of times when you don't have something that you're really striving for and excited to go after, it makes it really hard to realize that, and for some people it can make them really feel, I don't want to use the word depressed, but really in a way like they're not living a meaningful life when they really are. They just have to realize the contribution they're making. Right. So there's, I think everybody has something that they could be reaching out, striving for, and going after. And I think that's a very innate thing in all of us that we yearn for and are hungry for. Right. And so we should always be seeking that out and saying, what is that for me at this time? And then when you find it, it's great because it's just, anybody who's ever got an idea or build a business knows, like you'll work around the clock. It's not even work. It's just figuring this out, figure out this problem. How do I overcome this? How do I do this? Then you make that first sale and it's like so exhilarating and you move on. Right. And so that's, I think that's why I say entrepreneurship is a very, I think it's ingrained in our DNA in a way, because it is the pursuit of something, right? Whether it's a business is irrelevant. It's the pursuit of something and finding out how to get it.
Yeah, absolutely love that. In fact, just about 2 hours ago or so, I was talking to a really close friend of mine about this very thing, about goal setting, about striving for big things. And she was sharing with me this cool story. He said something along the lines of like, young kids, 5-year-olds, when they're at the beach, they always want to build stuff, right? They want to build that sandcastle, right? They'll make it the most beautiful thing ever. And then once they're done, once this thing is done, right, and their parents are taking pictures and it's all cool, right? What does the kid do? It destroys it. Because it doesn't care so much about it doesn't care about ruling over the sandcastle. It just wants to build it, right?
Exactly. And it starts over again and builds another one, right?
Exactly.
So so that is it. I mean, and there's other things like that are natural things for us, like sales. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. You're in sales. Every human being is in sales. Now, people look at me when I say that all weird and stuff, but think about it. Every time that you try to convince somebody of an idea you have, you are selling. Every time that you try to, convince that person, whoever it is, to go out with you for drinks or, whatever it is, you're selling yourself to them, right? So like throughout the day, every day we are selling, and
For
so
sure.
and it's amazing how much and how often we don't embrace that side of us and push that away, in our lives. And I really think that selling's not a negative thing. I think that's how we convey ideas. I think that's how we change things and everything. And so I think embrace the sales person in you. Don't call it sales if you don't want to, but you are selling something every day at some point. So just be okay with that, and embrace it, because it'll really help you in your life.
Yeah, for sure. And so for our listeners, Dave, by the way, was actually a super successful salesperson at a Fortune 500 company before starting his business. So maybe do you have any kind of quick tips for people, that are starting to really think about this, they want to embrace that inner salesperson? Do you have any tips for people to really become better at sales?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to succeed in sales, first and foremost, you just have to be genuine in yourself. That's the first thing. If you are trying to sell someone, you feel like you have to try to sell, it's going to come out and you're going to look fake, and you're going to look like the stereotypical salesman, right?
Yeah.
Or salesperson. So the key is just be you, just be genuine, and enjoy it and have fun with it, and be curiosity is probably the biggest and one of the most important things to be a great salesperson. A lot of people are trained in sales to follow a script or follow a process where they'll ask a question to get an answer and check it off the box through their process, their presentation, or whatever it is. But it's that curiosity to go second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, how many levels deep, and really get to know who you are, wanting to work with or could be working with, and connect with them on a much deeper level that helps you to sell. People buy you before they buy a product or a service, always. And if you can't really connect with someone, and you can't really help them in real, tangible, valuable ways that they can see and that they are looking for, it's not about you. It's about them and what really is needed in their lives to make their lives better. And if you can do that, and you can really spend the time to figure out what they need to make the most difference in their lives, and then help show them how you can be a partner to deliver that with them and get them to that level or whatever they're looking for, then it makes it much easier to sell. It's not a sales presentation, then it's a collaboration. Let's figure out how to do this together, right? It changes the whole dynamic. And, for me, one of the things that I've always kind of been is I don't, and I hate to say this way because it isn't this way. I care about the sale, but I don't care at the same time. Look, it's either a fit or it's not for you. If it's not, no big deal. I'm not desperate to make that sale. Never have been, right? I'm excited to collaborate and really find a 2 + 2 = 6,
Yeah.
right? And make that a reality with you, right? But if it's not a fit, no big deal. There's a billion other opportunities out there. So you know what? That's, if it is, it is. If it is meant to be, it will. If it's not, it's not. And that's a hard thing for a lot of salespeople to do, especially when you got a quota and you got maybe somebody breathing down your neck and everything else. But if you can be yourself, be curious, not be desperate for the sale, and be okay with not making the sale, but maybe starting a great relationship, you're gonna be fine.
Love that. So to me, it almost sounds like you're really putting the focus on the other person and asking more. Instead of how can I get better through this, you're asking how can I make the other person better? How can I serve the other person in the best way possible?
And I actually just had Jay Abram on the show. If anybody doesn't know who Jay Abram is, Jay Abram is probably the godfather of marketing he's probably the most renowned marketing expert in the world. And he talks about 10,000 companies, 1,000 industries have benefited from. He's just billionaire, all that type of stuff, right? And so, Jay talks about a concept called preeminence, being preeminent with your clients and your customers. And that means that there is no other place to go but you, because the value that you bring to them outshines everything on such a level that there is no other choice. And how do you achieve that? You achieve that by truly understanding your client, their real needs, real value that they need in their lives for their business, and truly want to help them. And in fact, every he'll say every engagement they have with you, they should come away better in their lives for it, right?
Wow.
And so if you kind of look at sales that way, it changes the whole paradigm of what it is to sell. The last point I'll give you on sales, because a lot of salespeople don't do it, is ask for the business. It's amazing to me how many people will go through a sales presentation or that sort of thing, and at the end, not say, I really want to do business with you. How do we make that happen? Can we get started? Or just ask in some way, shape, or form. If you don't ask, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Every 5-year-old knows that, right? Every 5, heck, my daughter's 7, almost 8 now, right? So
she
every
knows,
time
I'm sure.
she will ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and continue to ask for what she wants, right? So you got to ask for what you want. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay. Don't feel guilty for asking for it. That's another thing with sales. So ask for what you want, and you'll be amazed how many times you get it.
Yeah, totally love that. Now, you talked about paradigm shifts already happening on your podcast. What were some of the other, ideas or stories or insights that really moved you and really changed your life from, outside guests that came to your show?
Gosh, there's so many. I just did a whole, I did a free ebook at the beginning of the year of my inner misfit things for the year. And, one of the things that people ask me all the time is like, what's the top favorite show? It's amazing how many of them, they're all different. They're all unique. Everybody's got something to bring to the table. What I have noticed is patterns that have really bubbled up over time, interviewing hundreds of these top performers all throughout the world. I've noticed some really unique patterns that they have and on more consistent. So there's a few things that really stand out. Whether they realize it, and talk about it, or they just do it, they play the long game. They look at things from a long-term viewpoint, and they're not obsessed with the in the now moment or anything like that. We live in this instant society. I often say this on the show, we stop the microwave with 3 seconds left. We can't even wait 3 seconds anymore. What's wrong with us? I mean, really, everything's gotta be now. And that's just not the reality. You'll read about, that one unicorn that became $1 billion company overnight or whatever, but you don't read about the hundreds of thousands or even millions of companies that didn't, right? But found success over time. And so the long game is the surest path. That view is one of the surest paths to success, is, taking that long view, one step in front of the other each day, working towards that goal, working towards bettering your company or what you're doing, and just getting a little bit better. And that it's really one of the other things is that the little things make the biggest difference. And you see this, there's a lot of great examples of this, and you hear this stuff like, hey, Olympic races are won by 100th of a second and all this stuff. That's literally a foot placement. It's a hand placement. And you'll be amazed if you've studied like Olympians, like, there's all the, remember Michael Phelps and the hand touch by a finger and all that stuff. They drill these positions, these exact ways that they have their hands and their feet and how they do things and everything over and over and over again for that moment. That very specific moment when 100th of a second matters, right? And so in your business and your life, the little things actually honestly can make the biggest difference. In fact, that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. It's not usually one big thing. It's not usually one big inner misfit thing that these people have that sets them apart from being the most successful in their fields. It's a lot of little things that they do that add up to a big competitive advantage. So pay attention to little things. Pay attention to things that you do in your life. Pay attention to what you tell yourself. Pay attention to your routines. Pay attention to your habits. In fact, one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard came on the show from Tom Ziglar, Zig Ziglar's son, where he said, the surest path to success is to replace a bad habit with a good habit. So there's a lot of those things, and I can rattle off more, but if you want, I can add some more. There's a few that really resonate.
Yeah, those are really some great insights. In fact, about last week ago, I think I had Chris Cook on the show, Olympian from Britain, and he was swimming with Michael Phelps in his last Olympics. And Chris Cook, he had the simple 2 laps rule, 2 laps in the pool, and that's it. And he just do that over and over and over again, right? So it's the same routine, like you're saying. And he was really getting deliberate about how do I place my hands? How do I put my feet, right? It was just these 2 laps. And it's this really simplistic way of looking at it, I think. but it's this consistent practice, right? That if you do it over and over and over again, millions of times in the pool, you're going to become really frigging good at it over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I love what you're saying here about really paying attention to the smallest of details, whether in sports or in business.
And that's the thing that we don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing that is hardest for us to do, especially in the society that we live in, that where we're conditioned to be instant, right? And I mean, a great example is, gosh, many years ago, we talked about grass growing the way that it does, or it was at the time. And it was, I mean, back then we were growing 100+% a year. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And we were drinking from a fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to a point where we were growing so fast, we almost went out of business because we almost crushed ourselves because we couldn't necessarily fulfill what we were bringing on and doing. And It caught us. And the thing about what we didn't grasp, and this is just what we want, we did it this way because this is the way we wanted to do it, is we built the company out of cash flow. We never took on money. We don't have any debt. We don't have any of that stuff, right? So we built this whole thing out of the cash flow that we were bringing in. And anybody who's ever done that knows that growth really sucks cash, because to try to keep up with it, you're constantly investing, you're hiring, you're doing all these things. The thing that we didn't do well back then was documentation of our processes and how we do things. And that's where we fell on our face, because we were hiring all these people, but we had no training program. We had no processes in place. We had none of that stuff. And people didn't know what the heck to do. We'd basically throw them in a seat and say, okay, figure it out and talk to that person. Go, we got to move on to the next thing. And that's what almost sunk us. And so we actually consciously, we had one day where my business partner and I woke up and we were literally 2 weeks from shutting the doors. I'm like, how can we be 2 weeks from shutting the doors? We're growing like crazy. How are we not going to make payroll and do that? And it was because we hadn't managed things that well. And we had all these people that we were bringing on, but we weren't getting things done fast enough because they didn't know what to do to be able to get to where we were getting more cash from the sales that we're making, that recurring revenue component that was needed. Right. And so we had to take a step back for about 18 months, and we slowed our growth. We actually slowed. Now this is going to sound kind of funny, but we slowed our growth to about 30%, which for us seemed like snail's pace, right, compared to where we were operating. And it was the toughest thing, especially for me as a lion. The last thing I want to do is,
you had to tame yourself. Almost.
We had to literally document everything, write out everything, go through every process and all that stuff and get that whole basis of everything in place. But it was the greatest thing we've ever done, right? It was what allowed the business to come out of that and be able to scale almost indefinitely at this point. We continue to better those processes and all that stuff. But, doing that act and spending all the time of doing that, getting a better way of looking at our finances, getting a CFO to really look at how we do things and be able to better project things for us so we can make better decisions. All that stuff had to happen. And I'm glad we did it. And I'm glad we went through that, because we wouldn't be who we are or where we are today without that. So it does. Please pay attention to the little things. And the sooner rather than later, document things in your business. Even if it's just you as a one-man show, just start documenting everything you're doing. Do a video of it, whatever it is. Just start to get some type of way of having that for those that come after you to be able to learn from and be able to put into action. It'll make a world of difference for you.
It's such a great insight, and it already gives me a lot of ideas for what I could start documenting in my own place here. But I love this willingness to really step back, which must have been painful and difficult for you, since you always want to go forward, right? But step back for a moment, consciously slow it down so that later on you're able to move much faster.
Well, and that goes back to the long game, right?
Yeah.
We didn't think about it at the time, but we were really doing the long game and saying, okay, we take a step back now, but we're going to be light years ahead in the future. And you have that delayed gratification of doing that, right? So again, it's amazing how these things really weave throughout when you look at this across the board with successful companies and people and stuff.
For sure. And now I want to dive a little bit deeper into your own personal habits that have led to your success. Are there any certain morning routines or daily habits that really help you show up as your best self every day?
Yeah, there's a lot of those. So actually, it's kind of another thing that really doing all of this kind of crystallized for me over time is I've got this formula that I call DCP, and it stands for discipline, consistency, and persistence. And this is another theme that I've seen with these top performers. And people hear that and they're like, duh, discipline, consistency, and persistence. But what does that really mean? So, discipline is doing the things that you need to do even when you don't want to do them. That's what discipline truly is. And consistency is doing that day in and day out without fail. Look, you can be disciplined for one day. That's not going to make a difference for you. You got to do it day in, day out without fail every single day, right? And so even if you do that, though, you're going to hit major brick walls. You're going to hit plateaus. You're going to hit insurmountable things in your way that, if you're not willing to persist through and, keep looking at how you get through and, innovating and finding ways to do it, you're just going to stay stagnant. That's where you're going to end up. You see it a lot with companies, right? You see a lot of companies grow, and then they hit that plateau point and they just stay there, right? And they never get off of it because they're facing an insurmountable wall that either they're not trying to persist through or they're not willing to, right? You see this with a lot of companies that have gotten passed up in the digital age and stuff. Blockbuster's a great example. Blockbuster wasn't willing to innovate. They got to the height where Blockbuster there was one on every corner. They were like Starbuckses. And, you could go get your videos. Netflix came along, started this thing, and they're like, that's never going to happen. In fact, Netflix tried to sell themselves for $50 million to Blockbuster.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that one.
Blockbuster laughed them out of the room. And now look, there's probably like one Blockbuster in some small town somewhere in the United States, right? So, they weren't willing to really see and persist through where the tide was turning to, and it sunk them, right? Probably one of the best epic business fails of all time, right? So you have to be willing to do that. And so that's a big thing. So for me, personal habits, every day, get up about the same time, between 5:30 and 6 a.m. I have a gratitude journal that I do. It's a pretty simple process. I call it my Thrive journal for the day. So what I do is I write down the 3 things I'm grateful for the day, whatever they are. Can be as simple as watching the sunrise that day. Could be much more deeper, right? And then the 3 most important things that I'm going to accomplish that day. And then afterwards, I get on my knees and I say a little prayer most days, and then I get to it. And I have opportunity times for myself where I'm best and most productive. I call them really productivity zones. So from about 6 to 8:30 in the morning, I'm hyper productive, right? I get going, I get a cup of coffee, get a good morning meal. I make myself a morning meal every day, and I crank. So that's when I get, some of my, a lot of times I get my top 3 things done at that time because I'm fresh and everything else. But after about 2.5 hours, that's when I kind of hit the law of diminishing returns and I got to take a break. So that's my workout time. And I'm a triathloner. So some days will work out for 2-3 hours at a time during the week. And so I plan that out. And so I've got my workout time. Then 11 noon, I'm finishing up. I, kind of come back, I get a quick lunch, and then I've got another productivity zone from about 1 to 3 in the afternoon. And that's when I do my podcasts and stuff and do that with people, and other types of things if I don't have that going on. Then again, kind of a break. Typically my daughter gets home from school about 4:00 each day. So I'll spend a little time with her, and then I'll have that kind of 5 to 6 p.m. hour where I'm just back in the zone again. And then typically I'm trying to stop around 6 p.m. every day. And then it's family time from there. My whole day on my calendar and everything is scheduled. So like everybody who has access to it, I've blocked out all the times. So there's only certain times that people can meet or do anything with me. And I've trained them when I'm available, not allow them to basically just steal my time.
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
So, and so that's how I kind of manage my time and all of that. And it's, there's a lot more around that, but those are, some of the habits that I do every day.
Yeah, I think this process of deliberately scheduling the things that are most important to us, our really highest priorities, is so important. So whether it's the workout time, whether it's really the time when you're able to focus the most, is so powerful. Because otherwise, I feel like it tends to get thrown out of the window when these outside emergencies of other people come in, right? We're like, let me give my workout today.
Yeah, I get some of my best ideas and figure out the solutions to, some of my biggest challenges when I'm in that workout time. So I'm still going during that time. It's an outlet for me, but that's when, I get to really like today was a long day for me. I had an hour on the bike, a 40-minute run, and then 1.5 miles in the pool.
Wow,
right?
nice.
And so when you're swimming for 45 minutes, you don't have headphones on. You can't do anything. You can just think, right? And so I actually, there was a few big challenges, big new client stuff that we're trying to work through right now. And I came up with 2 or 3 of the solutions that I want to, employ with my teams for that while I'm swimming today. Right. And, now giving that to them, and they're implementing them and everything else. Right. So some of my best ideas come when I'm not being bombarded by a bunch of stuff, and it just, your brain has that time to relax a little bit and just go to work on these things. And I think that's important. You need that outlet every day.
Yeah, totally. For me, it's running. So I skip the biking, I skip the swimming. I'm not a fan of those, but I love running. I find the same way. Like it's such an outlet for creativity and just innovation. So really powerful.
Well, that's the other thing too. The last kind of piece to this is that you have to have you really have to have a good focus on your mental and physical health. Look,
Yes.
if you're going to succeed in the entrepreneur world, it's the toughest game in the world. It's the most fun game in the world, but it's the most challenging game in the world. There are some amazing peaks, but you spend a lot more time in the valleys. I actually just wrote a blog post about this. And so in order to power through those valleys, one of the things you have to be is in good shape physically and mentally, right? Because it'll just wear you down. And so that's a really important, at least for me, that I found is a really important piece of it is, being in having both those sides really in the best shape they can be, so they can be the best that they can be.
Totally. Thanks for pointing it out. Yeah. Now, before I ask my final question, where can listeners connect with you online?
Certainly. So Misfit Entrepreneur is a great place to connect. I'm on all social media, either as Dave Lukas or as the Misfit Entrepreneur. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me there. A lot of these lessons that I've talked about today, I actually haven't, I've got a couple free ebooks that you can get right from the Misfit site. So if you go to misfitentrepreneur.com/lessons, that will give you access to them. So that's a great place to go get some of this stuff and learn more about it, and just learn more about what we're doing.
Fantastic. Now, a final question. What is your quest for greatness? So what's a big vision in your life that you want to create?
This has changed over the years, right? When you're young and single, it's a lot different than when you have a wonderful wife and daughter that you get to wake up to every day and stuff. And so, my quest for greatness is to be able to leave behind the best legacy for my little one to carry into the future. There's a question I ask everybody on my show, and it's at the end of the episode, and it's really kind of the same thing. It's what we call it the Misfit 3, but it's the 3 biggest pieces of wisdom that you want to leave behind. If you're going to leave the earth tomorrow, what would be the 3 most important pieces of wisdom you would leave behind to the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, period? And for me, it's that quest to be able to really not just 3, but leave behind everything that I have found to be the best that you can be. We're not ever going to be perfect, right? And so you just have to keep working on that. And so as I keep working on it and getting new breakthroughs in who I am and what I learn and the wisdom that I gain, I want to continue to share that and leave that behind for not just Hannah, but for everybody that's willing to listen and find it for themselves, because it's amazing how we know everything and nothing at the same time, And so that quest for wisdom, not just knowledge. I think knowledge without action is really nothing. Wisdom is truly taking knowledge and putting it to action. So the quest for true wisdom that is put into action that makes a difference, I think, is how you get to greatness. And that's what I continue to seek after.